It was all right. That's the best experience. I love parade.
We'll call the Monday, October 21st Emmaus Borough Council meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up on the agenda is personal appeals, part one. If you have a personal appeal, please approach the podium. You have 5 minutes for your appeal.
You need name and.
Hello.
I already had him sign in.
My name is Cliff Brownbridge, and this is my wife, Deborah. We're 69 years old, and we're both retired. We've lived at 927 Walnut Street since April of 2009. And we're here concerning the sudden increase in student parking in our section of Walnut Street and the impact it is having on our lives. We're located 1 block from the high school. Our house is located near 10th Street, so you'll have an idea of our location. We're the last house. Colonial Crest Apartments are located behind us, just to give you an idea of where we're talking about.
So you're right near the culvert area?
Yes,
Okay,
but across the street.
okay.
Okay,
Behind
The
the
imp-
car garage.
excuse me,
Behind the car garage?
across the street.
Okay.
Okay, the impact it's having on us with the students parking on our street. Number one, we're unable to park on our street. This prevents us from getting cars out of our garage. And I could elaborate if you want, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Noise. They park as early as 6:30 a.m. There's loud music, especially those who love their bass. And in other words, they sit in their cars and they're playing their music. They're kids. I've also witnessed loud arguments, and I realize, again, this is basically kid stuff. Traffic congestion. It's causing difficulties to get out of our driveway. I've counted anywhere from 18 to 23 cars, not including residents' cars. And we're talking about the section between 10th and 9th Street, just that little section. Deliveries such as our propane, and this is specific to us, deliveries such as our propane, Amazon, and FedEx are more difficult because there's no place for the trucks to park. Street cleaning. Last Friday, the street sweeper was unable to clean up to the curb. I was out front, and in other words, they drove down the center of the street. Just clean the center, the crown of the street, not the sides. And finally, leaf collection. This is our immediate issue since it started today. We have 3 large trees in our yard, as well as 4 small ones. And when I'm talking large trees, I'm talking big maples, 60 feet high. They create a lot of leaves. And so our leaf piles are very high, very large, and the cars are in the way. We have no place to put them. So last week, I drove around our neighborhood, and I discovered that Walnut Street has 1-hour parking signs beginning at 9th Street, but no signs in our section, which encompasses 6 houses, 8 if you count the houses with a 9th Street address. We can only assume that this was an oversight because there is no difference in the Walnut Street houses starting at 9th Street. They are single-family houses with driveways just like ours. And we're requesting that the same 1-hour parking signs be placed on our section of Walnut Street and that the students park elsewhere.
So, Mr. Groundridge, was that?
Brown.
Okay. Yeah, I will tell you that this was a lot of discussion when they changed that parking. It had to be just missed. I don't think there's any intention of why we wouldn't have made that the same way as the rest of those neighborhoods. You weren't on the committee. That whole committee is new this year. I'm looking around, all 3 of those council members are gone. So I do remember definitely had to have been missed. I don't think that was intentional. So perhaps we can take it to public safety and have that discussion. We'll go back through, look at the ordinance that we had adopted and all the streets that we had adopted it around, because there's the area that's actually closest to the high school. We just had to have missed it. So I
Well, I thought-
apologize.
So every year or two, so it gets expanded. Last year we added Franklin Street and then some others, and then they just go beyond that. So every other couple years we add more, and
Mhm.
you were probably just missed.
Yeah.
But after you now it's Chestnut Street. So now it's probably going to force it probably
Yeah.
to
But-
the north part of town, and they're going to start going from Cherokee in that area.
I think
It's just going to keep going on until they have to walk a mile
Right.
to
Yeah,
school.
oddly though, like we put the regulations on areas of the street that were farther away from the school than his house, right? I mean, that's what we did.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah,
That's
so
what
we
happened.
just simply,
Yeah, it was
That's why I
missed.
brought up the fact that we're close to 10th Street.
yeah,
You know, they're simply parking their cars and walking up 10th Street, which
Yeah.
I understand, but I don't think that was
So
the intent.
my suggestion,
where you're causing.
my suggestion would be to just check with the police and see if there's any issues with expanding where we did last year, and just see, because if we're going to do it, let's add what we're going to
Yeah,
or need to.
Ms. Baumgartner, that's
Yeah.
okay to put on your agenda.
Yes. We'll have it on our agenda at the next Public Safety Committee meeting, which is what day is that? That'll be November 13th at 9 a.m. Okay.
Would the mayor be able to close it down for leaf cleaning and just put a temporary close
So-
for a week or something?
So yeah, so what we could do so that you can get your leaves taken care of is, what day you're doing it. Give me,
I'll generally do it toward, we're retired. That's why I brought that up,
yeah.
you know.
But what
so
we
aren't-
could,
We don't have to do it on the weekends. We would do it late in the week or something.
if you kind of give me a day or two's notice, what we could do is we could have the Public Works Department go out there and put temporary no parking signs up.
Okay,
So that way you can put the pile there.
right.
We'll get it far enough. We'll get so we can get in there and grab it
That'd be great.
with the machine. Just, you'll just have to give me a couple days notice to
I
do it.
will, because even if there's a space, you understand they have to get the machine in there. So
Yeah.
even if I have leaves and the cars on either side, it doesn't help.
Yep.
Because you can't get at them.
Right.
Lastly, I don't know if you called the police at all, but they will ticket them. But then the next day it will be another student, but
We'll be glad to do that until they get used to the no parking signs, if that's what you're referring to.
no, I'm
You already
referring to
called the
now, like
police.
if they're too
Well, they
close to
call
your
back.
driveway and stuff, just call the police.
So just to give you kind of a little bit of a timeline, if the committee looks at it in November, we could write up an ordinance for the third Monday of November, if that's what they want to do. It wouldn't get adopted though until like the third week of December.
It's fine.
Okay, so just to give you kind of a reasonable expectation of a timeline for it. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any online guests with the public appeal?
See anybody?
All right. Hearing none, does anyone have a community minute to bring forward?
I'll make a comment about the Halloween parade. First of all, I think Mr. Dufresne in his first year of chairing that committee and all of the committee members did an excellent job. I think that parade was flowed smooth. And I've heard comments that, and I personally felt that was as big of a crowd as I've seen, to the point of in some areas we have to have discussions about some safety concerns of how far into the road the crowd was pushed. But overall, I think they did a great job, and the floats were really cool. They were really nice. So kudos to that entire committee and all the volunteers and all the employees that also put in the time and effort as well, because it's getting harder to get the volunteers to work all the intersections. So we had borough staff volunteer to go out there too. So again, thanks to everyone. Those of you that walked it, I think halfway through the parade, Roy was doing a wind sprint to CVS because we ran out of like $500 of candy halfway in. So,
Another $100.
what's that?
Another $100.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you paid it because my wife probably would have killed me if
I
we
hope
would.
you had a CVS card where you can at least get points or something.
We did. Yeah, I mean, we ran. What were we, Shannon? We were probably not even on Walnut Street yet. I don't think we were
I
starting to
know,
go low.
not quite halfway.
So the food trucks, I think, were a hit. Some of the downtown businesses had all sorts of different things going on, and of course, all the houses that celebrate that.
There's a band playing on one porch. It was pretty neat.
Yeah,
I think some of the churches had events going on
they
too.
did. Yeah.
I wanted to add that I also appreciated, I saw the cleanup crew immediately after. Like as soon as the parade was done, there was street cleaning happening immediately. So that was nice to see as well.
We did. So we tried something new this year. We tried to street sweep the entire parade route right after. We had to stop. They got about halfway through. Just the amount of people
That were still lingering.
that were still lingering. So the police chief asked them to just kind of cut it off. So we'll have to rethink that. How we'll attack that.
Maybe an hour later.
What's that?
Maybe an hour later.
Yeah, maybe an hour later. Exactly.
Or you put them like before the fire trucks.
In the
Yep.
parade.
Well, I'm not sure that'll
Get
go.
back.
Yeah, they're gonna get
We're
back.
gonna have like a get back crew. Get back. Get back.
Yeah.
Please don't do things that cost you money or problems. Please
Yeah.
don't do that. Don't do that.
Anybody else have a community minute? I'm going to share that the mayor wanted to remind everyone that this Friday, October 25th, from 6 to 8 o'clock is trick or treat. Also, they will at the police department have hot dogs, candy, Mission Barbecue. We'll be there. So make sure everybody turns on your porch light if that's what you're going to do.
For sale or
No.
Everything's for free.
Yep.
it's nice to stipulate that so people know.
Yep. Any other community minute? We have no special presentations tonight. Is there a motion to accept October 7th council meeting minutes? Motion by Mr. Lavenberg, second by Mr. Honschein. Any discussion?
I have a comment. On page 4, I just wanted to offer a point of clarification if we could. So page 4 under Budget and Finance Committee, there was some discussion about the pool. And at the very end, the last sentence, there's a reference to the study this fall. Do you see that? I was wondering if we could just clarify that it's the engineering study, just to distinguish it from the other study that we reference.
Yeah, we can
I know it doesn't make it wrong, but just for clarity.
fix it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes. We have some decisions on bids we need to make. We got a bid in from the fire training ground. This is something that we've been waiting on for quite a while. I'm going to let Shane speak about this a little bit. He had some discussions with the fire deputy chief today on some stuff, and
Sure. So as you know, we have some money in a savings account for fire repair. As we received a grant for it for $100,000, we needed to come up with the other 100. The intention is to ultimately sell the trailer. However, in meeting with Lehigh County Emergency Department, they have decided to grant us $100,000. So the project is funded. So we put it out to bid. WHP is a company that specializes in fire towers. As a matter of fact, I believe they may have been the company that was responsible for the original fire tower. They are the only ones that submitted a bid to us. If you look at their cost sheet, they have a base bid of $171,266, and then they have some options. Option 1.1 was for some temperature door sweeps, and then there's another option for like to download data to an SD card. And not sure why we would need to do that. And then the voluntary option was to touch up the paint in the exterior where the heat damage has occurred. And I asked Chief Miller, why would we paint something that we're just going to catch on fire again? And he kind of agreed, because I asked, like, okay, if I spend, $3,000 to paint the area on the outside, is that a year? Is that a week? How long is that? And he really didn't have an answer, right? So it's not good money to do option 1.2 or the voluntary option. So our recommendation would be to accept the base bid with option 1.1. And I think I gave you the cost in $172,501 to Jenkinson's Construction Incorporated, DBA WHP.
Motion by Mr. Labenberg.
So moved. Yeah.
Is there a second? Mr. Brown? Any further discussion?
Just a question, with the 100,000 that the county's giving us, are there any strings attached to that? I know the county fire departments are already able to use our training grounds, and we implemented procedures for making sure this doesn't happen again. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, the strings attached are simply that we continue to allow it to be a regional area.
Even the one that messed it up?
No, I made that very clear. I
Okay.
told them they can keep their money.
Okay.
They are not invited back.
Mr. Pepe, I got a quick clarification question.
The accountability.
You said it was a $100,000 grant with a $100,000 match?
No. Well, no, there's a $100,000 grant that we received through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I think it was the State Fire Commissioner. I think that's the organization. The project we knew would cost up to another $100,000 that we needed to find funding for.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
Okay.
the hope was that we could sell that trailer, but not for $30,000. So we haven't put it out the bid because we didn't have the other half of it.
Okay.
The county came in and that's where they
Okay,
offered.
I understand. A little bit clearer now.
They
Thank
offered more. Yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes. Under communications, we have Bethesda Lehigh Valley event request application. This is something I would typically probably send to Parks and Rec, but the event is on October 26th. So I think we're at short notice here. I don't know if anyone wants to take the time and go over the application now as a group, or if we just automatically deny it.
I wouldn't automatically deny it. I mean,
Mr.
You-
Hunchad?
Yeah, I mean, I looked over it. I don't see any, it seems pretty basic. A few pop-up canopies, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., no alcohol. So it doesn't look like there's really a whole lot on our end of it. So I would have no problem approving it even on the short notice.
they're not asking to close the street either, right? So it's some tents on the triangle, hoping to
Yeah.
generate an audience.
I was gonna say, Shane, do they even need our permission to?
Yeah, if they're gonna have it-
They're gonna do tents, but if they
If
just
it's
stood
if
there
it's
and
an
gave out-
if it's an organized event,
Okay.
it's required.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know if they notified the local businesses?
Well, seeing that this is the first time I've seen it, probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they have to provide insurance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that we approve the event with the verification of insurance
Motion,
for the date and time specified.
motion by Mr. Labenberg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Hunchad? Any further discussion? Mr. Anders?
So it says estimates attendance 45, but it says community 150. What if it becomes that large? Is
But that's over 5 hours.
I don't see
Yeah.
it.
So
I don't
150
know.
people over 5 hours is not a.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
just wanted
not
to
a-
know if there was if it got too big, if there's a concern. That's all.
If they had another zero on there, I'd be
Okay.
concerned with it. But 150 over 5 hours. I mean, we're talking. Not
Okay.
even
I just figured I would.
what
ask.
30 people an hour coming through. on average.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes. We have no borough engineers report. Solicitors report.
No report this evening. Progress.
Thank you. Unfinished business part 1. We have ordinance 1271, an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 15, subsection 602.3.a of the Emmaus Borough Code, adding residential disabled parking signs and assigning permitted parking spaces on a public street located in front of 221 Ridge Street within the Borough of Emmaus. This is the second reading on this. Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
So move.
Mr. Labenberg, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Baumgartner. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Ms. Watt?
Aye.
Mr. Anders?
Aye.
Mr. Labenberg?
Aye.
Mr. Honchad?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Baumgartner?
Aye.
Mr. Balliot? Aye. 7 ayes. We have no new business. We have no unfinished business part 2. Does anyone have an item not on the agenda they'd like to bring forward? Hearing none. There is no mayor's report. Into committee reports. First up is Public Works. Mr. Anders.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing for official action this evening. Our next meeting is Monday, November 18th at 4:45. Right now, we'll hold that meeting and we'll do it before council. I believe we have council that evening. With that, I'll report progress.
Thank you, sir. You know what the current compost hours are for people getting rid of leaves? Are we still open 3 days a week? Or
It's on the
head.
website.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
don't know it on top of my head.
He should know it, but
Yeah, no
don't ask
biggie.
me if I know.
It's also in the last newsletter too.
It is in the newsletter.
Yeah.
There you go.
I will say, Mr. Balliot, today was the last day for curbside yard waste pickup.
Yeah, so I think we have to be at that point where we're only open on the
And today leaf pickup.
Yeah.
Starts, yeah.
My trees are still full.
Yeah, same with mine.
Yeah, there's been years where like
They just
we got that
grow.
real hard rainstorm and October was a mess, and then there's been years where they're still on the trees in December,
yeah.
and then we get a snowstorm, and then we're plowing leaves.
Health, sanitation, and codes. Mr. Brown.
All right, nothing for official action, Mr. Chairman. Our next meeting is November 19th here at the community room at 4:45. If there's nothing for official action for that meeting will probably be canceled. Progress.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation. Mr. Honchad.
One item for official action attached to your packets is the proposed building lease with EYA for the training facility that they're building up on South 4th Street. So I will put the approval of that lease in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Honchad. There's a second by Mr. Labenberg. Any discussion?
There is a member of EYA online. I'm not sure if he wants to speak or not, but essentially, I mean, the lease is pretty straightforward, right? So I don't think you guys need a whole lot on it.
Do you want me to?
Yeah,
comment?
if you want. if you
Honest answer, we reviewed it. We made a couple changes. They were in complete agreement with the changes we made. Everything should be copacetic.
Great. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes.
The next meeting note is on a Wednesday instead of the regular Thursday. That's due to budget season. So it'll be Wednesday, November 20th at 4:45, and I'll report progress.
Thank you. Next up, Public Safety. Ms. Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've already taken care of our action item. We have meeting notes attached for your perusal, and our next meeting will be November 13th at 9 a.m. Report progress.
Thank you. General Administration. Mr. Labenberg.
Thank you. We have the LERTA application. It was approved by the Planning Commission and recommended to council to approve the application. I guess they're here to answer questions if we have any questions, or are they doing a presentation?
They do have a small presentation.
Okay, so I'll call them up at this point.
I'll make a
If you
quick
could please
comment.
introduce yourself, because I apologize, I didn't get the information on it.
Before we begin, I'll make a quick comment. This is subject to the LRTA ordinance we just passed. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on Thursday. I will make a statement that the application as submitted does comply with this, the statutory requirements within the LRTA ordinance.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is the same one that's in their iPad.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity. My name is Michael Mayer. I'm with Westrom Development. We're the project sponsor for 300 Furnace Street. And I'll walk through a pretty quick presentation, and then I'm here to answer any questions. I'll have to nod to Shane each time for the slide, or
Kristen has it today.
you can advance, please. Okay. Very briefly, Westrom Development, we've been in business for 38 years. We're a residential developer. We build multifamily homes. We build single-family homes. We build senior living communities. And the project we're talking about tonight is another one of our products that we build, a garden-style apartment buildings, walk-up style, garden style. We're headquartered in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania, just in the Philadelphia suburbs. It's where the lion's share of our history has been. We're excited to be here in the Lehigh County and Emmaus to look at this project that we started just a few months ago. You can go to the next slide. Okay. And Westrom, in our 38 years with our team that's behind us, we're experts in land acquisition and approvals. We don't shy away from dirty sites such as this, as brownfield sites. We've done a number of what we call Act 2 DEP approvals, and I'll walk through very briefly about what that means. Public-private partnerships, we've done many of them. Essentially what that means, when we come to a community, oftentimes we find ourselves redeveloping a property that has fallen on hard times, that's key in this community, with infrastructure in place that we try to infill that. So oftentimes that comes with a public-private partnership where we're sometimes rezoning a site, sometimes we're doing a LRTA or a TIF to really help bring to fruition the community's vision for something that needed that get pushed over the hump. So we've done many, many of them. We're a builder. We're building the project here. We also lease it, which means that the residents that move into our community, we screen them. We're responsible for them. We're not outsourcing that key, what we consider to be a key element of property management to a third party, and we do our own property management. So when we build a project in the community, you're getting us, you're getting our experience and our team. Next slide. Here's the site right here, 300 Furnace Street. Everyone here is familiar with it. It's about 8.7 acres after the consolidation that occurred. Sits between 4th Street and 2nd Street, right on South Mountain Road, just 2.5 blocks or so from your downtown. You can go next slide. This current site condition is not quite. This was taken in the summer. This was what it looked like just about 8 weeks ago. Believe it or not, it's been transformed already. But essentially what you saw 8 weeks ago and then the past 30 years is a site that was overgrown, functionally obsolete parcel. Despite its walking distance to town, it sat there for lots of reasons undeveloped because of all the challenges that this site presented to itself. And it's been abandoned really since the mid-90s. You can go to the next slide. What is that history? Why was it challenged? I'm sure you're all familiar, but as a recap, it's historic industrial use for fuel, oil distribution. It was a foundry and machine shop, petroleum storage, tank repair, cleaning and lining. And the site, unfortunately, is burdened from that historic use. So there's all kinds of historic fill on the site from the foundry. So really what the site needs is to be cleaned up. It needs to be brought to productive use. Otherwise it would sit there. The bottom graph you see just kind of with the outline of the property, it's hard to see. In yellow, essentially that's where it's been characterized. That's where the by and large of historic fill is. And it's important for us as we started to develop this site and understand the risks of developing the site because you have a combination here of historic fill where it's dirty and needs to be handled properly pursuant to the regulations. And then you have the other piece, which is the smaller piece, which is not so dirty. So it has cleaner fill. So we can take advantage of a combination of the dirty soil and the clean soil to bring an overall soil management program to be able to meet the DEP regulations to develop this and bring this site to safer residential use and a community that we envision to build here. More pretty pictures of the site before we did the demolition and the abatement. It borders that existing rail spur that's active. It's part of our development. It'll stay there. We continue to, we'll be a very good neighbor to that rail line when it runs 2 or 3 times a week. The top right corner gives you a sense. There's that historic fill outline I showed about on the previous slide. It's hard to see, but what you see really is all the different dots. What that represents is I'll call it the characterization. What investigation occurred in soil borings, test borings, groundwater testing, all throughout this property, really since 2019, to characterize the site, to determine whether there is a feasibility to redevelop this site. Jeff Trainer and Jeff Ott were the developers who started this project 5 years ago. They received the approvals from this body for the zoning and the ultimate land development. We're stepping in their place, but they did a lot of the work for this project to get it to this position right here. You can go to the next slide. This was an article as we start to look at this site. We've been looking at this site for about a year. Our first visit was probably this time last year. And we saw this article that Shane was quoted on, and we were trying to figure out why it's been sitting for so long. The approvals have been in place for a better part of 3 years. And essentially, the developers who looked at this, and we were not one of them, we were not part of this in 2021, but the developers, the 8 or 10 developers that looked at this for a good reason to try to develop this pursuant to the approvals that were granted, all ran away. Why did they run away? Brownfield developments are complicated. They're full of risk. Even if you characterize it, even if you think you know exactly what has to happen, even if you know what DEP thinks they want today when they issue the piece of paper, once you stick that shovel in the ground, once you knock that first building down, once you put your water testing in the ground, that's when you really understand what risk you bought. So it's our job to understand that risk. We have experience to do that, but that's why you saw this property sitting for the better part of 3 years after the approvals were granted, that there were no activity. And this was a little bit before COVID and during COVID, but the residential market during that period was as hot and as robust as you can get. But this property sat idle because of the complexities to develop this property. Next slide. It's another quote from Shane. This is what I meant to say, and I'll quote Shane as he sits in front of me, but as many as 8 prospective developers walked out of the phase 1 property investigation because of the price tag for containment cleanup and meeting the state remediation requirements. So the next slide, we'll talk about what those state remediation requirements are. If everyone's familiar with Act 2, the DEP has a program called Act 2. It's a voluntary program. What essentially that does in layman's terms is it takes a property like this that has environmental challenges from a legacy of uses, and a developer wants to bring that property back to productive use. And it doesn't have to be residential, it could be any use. So DEP put a program to essentially give the developers that come in after that have nothing to do with the prior legacy of the environmental, and give them liability protection. That comes with a price. That liability protection allows a developer like Westrom to go get a bank to help lend money to this property, as well as private investors to invest in the property, knowing that if we meet the DEP regulations for the cleanup that are strict and objective, there can't be liability that chases the developers that make this investment. So it's a bargain. DEP gets the property cleaned up to a very strict standard. The developers yet ensure that they're not going to have lawsuits down the road for something that they had nothing to do with. And certainly the residents get in our case, really, we hope to be a wonderful community, and the community gets a property that hopefully can be a spark for other development and investment in this community. That's the bargain in Act 2 program. We've done many of them. You lose sleep on them because you just don't know when you're complete. The risk, you do as much testing as you can before. We're still out there chasing the dirty dirt to make sure we can meet the DEP requirements. The timeline, basically, as I shared, this started in March of 2019. Jeff Trainer and Jeff Ott, they were able to get the DEP approval for this cleanup plan about 18 months later. So they spent a lot of time and a lot of money to characterize the site. And they went to do that before they went ahead and got all the different approvals from the borough. They did that. And as I said, from 2020, when the DEP approvals were secured, to 2024, it sat fallow, despite their efforts, despite their best efforts to find a developer to partner with to develop this site. We came in about a year ago. We started to look at it and review all their plans. And what happened was DEP approved the regulations in 2020. The regulations changed. Bad news, because we had to go out and do recharacterization. They got a little more strict. So we had to go out and do additional characterization, sampling, and present to DEP a new remediation plan to make sure we can deal with that new tighter regulation, which we believe we will achieve. Next slide. Those cleanup plans, I talked about them. What you'll see on this site, what we're doing today, soil removal and management. I talked about segregating the dirty dirt from the clean dirt. So ultimately, when we're complete, we'll have a 2 feet of cap over the entire site pursuant to DEP regulations. We've removed underground tanks on the site. Lots and lots of groundwater testing and delineation to make sure that the site doesn't leach off property. DEP requires that. There'll be the environmental cap, the 2 feet of soil that I talked about. There will be a deed restriction that DEP requires to make sure that 2 feet of cap stays in perpetuity. So if we ever sell the property or something else happens, that deed restriction protects the community, the residents, the borough. As we start to go vertical, which we're not there yet, there'll be probably liners under the foundation just to make sure there's not vapor intrusion into the units. We don't have that vapor intrusion risk based on the characterization, but that's something we're considering. And then, believe it or not, on this site, despite the environmental, there were nice wetlands on the site according to DPA. So we had to characterize the wetlands, and they were in the way. So we're going to move them on site. So that's just a snapshot of all the regulatory approvals. Woe is us. We're the developer. That's our risk. That's our business. But it's a process. It takes time. It takes money, and it takes patience and some level of risk. Okay, this is the site plan. This is the plan that this body approved some 3 or 4 years ago, the second time. I think initially they had a 5-building program here. We're down, and then they went back and got amendment to get a 4-building. So this plan was the final plan, was approved by this council some 3 years ago. And just as a refresher, what you'll see is there's 4 buildings. Each building will have 36 units, and that's a mix of 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms. In the center, almost like the little eye, there's a clubhouse. That clubhouse will have a pool, a dog park, a little bit of a gym, and just some amenities for the residents to enjoy. Parking on the site, pursuant to our requirements, has 317 spaces, 2.2 parking spaces. We believe there's plenty of parking on the site for the community to not spill out into the neighbors. Next slide. Okay. I'll have a couple slides on the exterior and our vision for this architecture. Whenever we go to a project, we don't just stay in our Fort Washington office. We get into the community and look around to see what's the architecture, what's the lifestyle in this community. So we just have some photos here. You're probably familiar with the bike shop in town, just to make existing facilities. And to the right is some of the buildings that you see today in multifamily business. So we're not starting from anew, but we certainly get inspiration locally before we start to design a building, because we ultimately expect the community to blend into the community. And then this is the exterior renderings of the apartments. Essentially what you have here, each building will be nearly identical, 4 stories. On the first 2 stories, they're single level apartments, a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. If you live on the 3rd floor here, in that 3rd floor apartment, there's an interior stairwell for just that unit that'll lead you to a loft. So essentially, if you live on the 3rd floor, you kind of live in almost a townhome style loft where you have a level 3 and a level 4. All the units will have an exterior deck or patio. Yeah. You can go next slide. Okay. The solicitor talked a little bit about this. This body approved the ordinance in September of this year, just a couple months ago, or last month. Next slide. And what they approved was this. This is the abatement schedule. And as you know, we talked about this at the Planning Commission just the other night. The base assessment is not subject to the abatement. So what does that mean? There's an existing tax assessment on this property today and probably for the last 30 years that I'll show you what that is, but that's not subject to the abatement. So the borough would always get 100% of the current assessment of that property today. And then the schedule, this is what was approved back in September. Basically, it's a tiered step of 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, and then the 6th year, you're fully abated. And then the last bullet up there, the first year of this, according to the ordinance, the first year of alerta commences the first tax year following completion of the project. And I'll show you a schedule. And Eric, I'm with Eric Hetzel, Creative Services. He's our fiscal consultant. He's helped us put together some of the fiscal studies that we'll have a slide to show that as well. Next slide. Okay, so we're back to the process timeline. 9/16, the board approved it. We submitted our application the next day to Planning Commission. Next slide, this goes quickly. The Planning Commission was last Thursday. That was approved unanimous or recommendation to come here. And then here we are this evening. And then next slide. Okay. This is where it is today. If nothing were to happen on this project today, this is the newest estimate from 2024 that just came out a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago. This is the new assessment. So if nothing ever happened, the borough would get $3,339 per year. You can go to the next slide. Our projections based on the 2024-25 common level ratio, which is how the county makes their assessments based on construction estimates, would have the borough getting $111,463. And if you go to the next slide, one more slide, yeah, and then with an increase of $108,000 per year. And you can see, obviously, we include the East Penn School District and Lehigh County. Just as to share information, we are in discussions with Dr. Campbell at East Penn School District. We're scheduled to present to her board on November 11th. Last week, we met Phil Armstrong and Frank Kane at the county, and they're scheduling a time to meet their committee and go to their board as well. So far, it's been positive feedback. Obviously, nothing's happening until a board approves it. You know, next slide. Okay, I'm going to introduce Eric to walk through very briefly the fiscal summary that he prepared.
Thanks, Mike. As Michael mentioned, I'm Eric Hetzel with EH Creative Services. I did the fiscal impact analysis here, and what fiscal impact analysis essentially is an evaluation of the annual fiscal impacts, the various revenues that the borough and the other taxing authorities collect based on the way they raise those revenues as portrayed in the municipal budget. In the case of the borough, you have the real estate tax, you have an earned income tax, transfer tax, Act 511 per capita tax, another local services tax, and then in the case of this development, there will be a one-time recreation fee of $144,000. So we look at each of those revenues on an annual basis against the cost to provide services to new development. And again, that's based on an evaluation of the borough budget and the way that services are provided to the existing tax base today. And we assume that those services will be provided to the new development at a similar rate. And it's based on a per capita cost model based on population projections from the new development. So this chart shows the 5-year LRTA period plus the 6th year, which will be the year that the abatement is down to 0. And the real estate taxes would be paid in full. You can see that all the other tax sources are paid at their full rate. It's just the real estate tax that's abated at that 5-year abatement schedule where it goes in increments of 20% until you're paying 100% of the real estate tax. And what this chart shows is that while you do have a net negative fiscal impact in years 2 and 3 of the abatement schedule, due to the fact that there's no real estate taxes being paid, the cumulative net impact remains positive throughout the abatement period, and that's primarily due to that one-time recreation fee contribution that sort of provides a buffer against the loss of real estate taxes in the early years of the abatement. By the end of the abatement period, when the property is paying the full real estate tax revenue, again, based on 2024 tax rates and ratios and market information, we're not projecting any sort of escalation for or adjustment for inflation. The property would be paying roughly $111,000 in real estate taxes on top of those other tax sources that are listed there against borough costs. There's a net annual positive fiscal impact from this development of just over $50,000 a year. So it essentially pays for itself and then some in terms of the revenues over costs. That's it in a nutshell for the fiscal impact analysis. And Mike, if you want to.
Yeah, and this is, thanks, Eric. This is just a conclusion slide, just to summarize what you saw in the real estate tax revenue. Just real estate goes from 3,339 to over 111,000 over that period of time. The project that we're endeavoring on here is at least $38.75 million. Our site costs, our environmental costs, just getting this site to hopefully where you see it today, once we get through the environmental, is around $4.5 million or so, just to get the site to be stable and to be developed to meet the environmental requirements. We're going to clean the site up to a PDA, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection residential standard, which will solidify the site for the next generation or two or three. And obviously it redevelops this long vacant site, and we certainly are going to add 144 residents to the borough and to this community. And we like to say renters, first they rent, then they buy. So we think it's really kind of an entry to this community for new residents into the community. I think that's the last slide. Here to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Lindberg?
Are all the parking lots and sidewalks maintained by the apartment complex then?
Yes.
Okay. And my only other question is that I did see the map, but is the trail still on there? There was
Yes.
That's all. I'm good. Thanks.
Anyone like to make a motion to accept this project's LERTA application? Motion by Mr. Anders. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Honshad. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I just want to make a discussion on this proposal is awesome. Because like you said, you got a win-win-win. It's the private-public partnership. And for, I don't know how long it's been, I think Mr. Lavenberg's been on council that we talked about LERTA before, and the timing was just maybe not right or things of that nature. So some would say, why give developers more money back? And you presented a case, Mike, that the cleanup, just for the ground itself is huge. And I would say this is a win. This is what exactly we needed. For years and decades, we have had this property. We didn't know what to do. It was our skate park, our quasi skate park that we
A
had.
dangerous one at that. I'm sure.
Yeah, it was pretty cool for the kids, right? So this is a big deal because not only did we still continue to get our $3,000 for that property, we have cell phone contracts that are 2 years old, 2 years, and that time goes by fast. And in 2 years, we're going to have 20% of that tax revenue coming in. So I want people to have a perspective of how quickly this future of this turnaround tax base will happen. So I appreciate you guys taking on this task. Like your slide said, there was multiple people that left, walked out on this project. And so I'm really happy to see it move forward. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Westrom and Mr. Ott
Yeah,
for spearheading.
Thanks for your support. Thanks for your comments.
So I just wanted to, I live on South 2nd Street and I drive down it and see it, the progress being made. And it's incredible how quickly you have transformed it already in that area. With, you can see, I mean, from the trees and the buildings being down and how clear and you know, you can hear them working and you can tell the progress is being made. And I thank you for being so diligent and jumping at it so quickly. So I do appreciate it as a resident that's, you know, just down the street from it and sees it. I mean, it's definitely will be better for the borough, and 2 years, can't wait to see it fully functional. Thank you.
We're excited. We have a great team on board, boots on the ground, really experienced group. We've had great weather, so we're really
They're
so far,
there
so far we're
all
really
weekend
fortunate.
long, even working. You know, they're you can see the progress.
Any other further comments or discussion?
So, obviously, I've been working with you guys since you've come in. I was working with the previous developer, Mr. Brown. You had dealt with this property with me all the way back in 2012, with the former owners, with our retired code officer, and I remember Jim Farnsworth talking about this property being a thorn in his side back in like 2000. And because it's been vacant since 1995, right? And so we've had this pegged as our number one blighted property in the borough for decades, and to see it finally come to fruition here is exciting. So congratulations, good luck. We'll see what council votes on here.
It has not yet actually been approved.
Right. That's
Thank
what I
you.
said. What
Okay.
they'll vote on this.
But let's
Wait
wait.
for a second.
Wait for the congratulations.
They're still building it.
Any further comments or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes. Congratulations.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your support.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay. Congratulations on building.
My only comment is how well everybody worked together on this and actually got this through in a fairly timely manner. I don't know exactly when the process first started, but I would say almost in the beginning of the year. And, you know, here we are 10 months, you know, into the year, and, you know, we got something completed that I think we all can be very proud of. Committee report? Jen Ed?
Yeah, we have a tentative meeting for November 6th contingent upon the budget, but that will be at 9 a.m. via Zoom. Progress.
Thank you. Next up is budget and finance. Myself. Attached, you're going to see the third quarter 2024 budget report. Also attached is the significant revenue and expenses for the first half of October. And the only thing I have for official action would be the bill list, resolution 2024-27. And the bill list as follows. It's $1,178,731.88. Payroll number 21 is $204,536.90. We have payroll taxes of $67,743.35 for a grand total of $1,451 or $51,012.13. Done this October 21st, October 24. Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Ladenburg. Is there a second? Ms. Watt, any discussion? All those in, Mr. Ladenburg?
Just, I saw 70,000 for the fireman's relief, and I'm guessing that's a pass-through.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know, I'm surprised that we still have it, because I don't hear about it too much anymore. Can you just explain how that's going right now? And do we get annual reports on what they do with their funds or anything? Because
No, so
I'm just curious, because
yeah, so we do.
they're still getting money, and I don't know.
No, the Commonwealth.
that's
the
working these
Commonwealth
days.
has ruled that we are eligible to receive the money. We get it. We cannot by law hold it more than 30 days, I believe. We have to pass it through to the Firemen's Relief Association. There are certain things that they can spend the money on for the entire department, whether they're employees or volunteers. But a lot of the things that like new volunteers come in, they'll pay for turnout gear, they'll pay for things like that. They'll pay for training things. So they are still active. And it is, I don't want to say active volunteers on that board, but old familiar faces, if you know what I mean, are still on that.
So is there still a volunteer part of our department? And this is part of that?
Yeah, so the majority of our volunteers would be public works employee, for example. We have one or two public works employees that volunteer as firefighters because we won't employ them because of the mixed overtime, the blended overtime rate, right? I'm not going to pay them $40 an
Any
hour.
call would be an overtime.
Right. So we have a couple of volunteer firefighters. We also have folks who want to be professionally paid firefighters, but they don't have the certifications to meet our employment status. So we'll bring them in as volunteers while they're going and getting their training and certifications, things along those lines. It could take them a year, it could take them 2, but we'll bring them in as volunteers, teach them, train them, those kinds of things. So they'll be volunteers as well. So what we see is a lot of like entry level firefighters will come in, volunteer. We also have a young man who is a high school student going to LCTI, and they have, I think it's an independent study. I think he's the first one to do it, but he's essentially doing like a fire science program. And so we actually have him on board too. We have an agreement with the school to allow him to come do essentially a work study program. So yeah, we do have a number of people that are considered volunteers. Not a ton. We're talking 4 or 5 at a time.
So they have an actual president, vice president, secretary,
They have their own-
secretary,
Yeah.
and
They have their own separate
do
organization.
they don't have to report annual
do.
reports to us?
Not to us.
Okay. And so who are they accountable to?
So
Just
they
the
get audited
state?
by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
The state. Okay, that's all. Thank you. It's nice to understand it. So,
We do receive we do have the right to get their annual report.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
All those in favor of resolution 2024-27, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Thank you, Shane.
7 ayes. Our next meeting will be November 6th at 11 a.m. Via Zoom. And with that, I will report progress. Community Relations Planning Development, Ms. Watt.
For official action, I'd like to appoint Jonas Arguello Delgado to the Arts Commission for a 3-year term to expire January 7th, 2027. He is a professional engineer who, as a young man, was interested in arts, but chose a more lucrative profession. But now that he's retired, he is recommitting himself to the arts, and I look forward to his passion and unique gifts in sculpture on our Arts Commission.
Motion by Ms. Watt. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Brown. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to point out the motion misspoke on the expiration of the term. We said January, but it's February. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. I'd like to amend my motion. February.
Mr. Brown, amend?
I don't think I think she just misspoke to it, right? You just misread it.
I just misread.
We don't have to go through a full amendment for that, do we?
The motion as written is February 7th, 2027. February 7th, 2027. Now I'm checking myself, but if it's written that way, you would have been adopting it as the record.
Okay.
But technically speaking, Ms. Baumgartner is correct on Robert's rules, but this would be one where there is an exception that could be applied.
I mean, if that's the
Everybody-
case, I want to do the bill list completely over. Okay.
Everybody was correct. Let's move forward.
Mr. Anders?
Huh?
Did you have something?
No, I didn't say a
Oh.
word.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes.
Our next meeting will be Tuesday, December 10th. So we have a little reprieve at 5 p.m. Progress.
Thank you. We have no boards and commissions minutes. Personal appeals part 2. If anyone has a personal appeal, they can approach the podium. You have 5 minutes for your appeal. Hearing none in the audience. Is there anybody online?
No.
None online. Borough Manager's report.
So several things. First and foremost, Kevin Farnish has finished the requirements to become a firefighter specialist. So we will be moving him up in pay rate. It's nice to see that our firefighters continue to work to obtain the qualifications. We have an ordinance that we did not get get on this agenda. It's a disabled parking ordinance in the downtown. We're moving a couple of spots around. We will get that on the next council agenda. You'll see that the Public Safety Committee worked on that last week before. Yeah, whenever it was. We have a couple changes that need to be made. Budgets are in your hands. They are also on Granicus, just like they have been for the past 8 or 9 years, and they are in ClearGov. So you have them in 3 different formats. I would suggest to you, for ease of flow on Thursday, to use probably Granicus. I think it'll be quicker for you to be able to open the attachments as the department managers are going through. Okay. The budget message is in there. As I tell you every year, if nothing else, read that 265 pages of pain, because it will give you the overview and the collective of everything that we're working on, have worked on, and continue to work on. Most importantly, dinner, Ms. Watt, thank you for sponsoring dinner on Thursday night. You have a very long workshop because that's the night that the library and outside organizations and all your department managers present. Dinner will be at 5:45, and Mrs. Watt is sponsoring dinner on Thursday, so thank you. And the last thing, compost hours we talked about. I looked that up just so we can get clarification. They don't change other than the fact that dusk is not 7:30 anymore, right? So compost hours until November 30th will still be open Monday and Friday from 7:30 to 2:30. Wednesday 7:30 to dusk, Saturday 8 to 4. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that we got that clarified. Other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will report progress.
Thank you. Under President's business, I have none. We do not have an executive session tonight. Is there a motion for adjournment? Motion by Mr. Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hohenscheid. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Meeting adjourned at 7:03.
And just for the